Hi folks, welcome to the Prepared Homestead. This is Travis. Thank you all for stopping by to watch. My wife and I did a little pew-pewing today, a little couples training. And I wanted to talk to you about that for just a moment because I think that is very critical for those of you out there that are married, you have spouses, and I know that's most of you according to the feedback that I get from my listeners. For those of you that are single, you still can pick up a few things. We didn't get a whole lot of time today. I had to tear her away from homeschooling and homemaking, but she really enjoys it. In fact, she drives me nuts more about it than I drive her nuts about it, about getting outside and doing some more shooting and some more training. And so it's something that we don't do enough, I'll admit. In fact, I was talking to my wife the other day about how much I used to shoot back when I was, on duty and that was my job. I was shooting quite often just to keep up my proficiency. And now I get busy, right? And I know that many of you are the same way. You get busy and you need to do it. You need to be going out there and training, but life is busy, right? And then there's always the cost of ammunition. It's not cheap anymore. Years ago when I was doing a lot of shooting, I could shoot all day for really not a lot of money. You and your wife, you and your husband, whoever you are that's watching right now, this is actually a very important part of your homestead and your family's defense. Typically, and I'm going to speak in general terms, so I ask that you give me some leniency here. Typically, the husband or the man is the one that engages in the defense of the home, and typically has a little bit more training, or at least seeks more training than anyone else in the home. But here's the problem. Is in a lot of scenarios that have happened and the potential scenarios that could happen in the future, just one person, no matter how well they are trained, may not be enough to defend the home, to defend the property against bad guys. And so as a husband and a wife, you need to learn to work as a team. You need to do some team training so that, even though I'm just speaking of a typical common scenario, that if the mother is going to stay back and provide that kind of last line of defense for the children, she at least needs to know how to function a weapon, how to be somewhat proficient in it, and understand the type of tactics that the husband may end up using to defend the home. Now, before I go any further, I want to make it clear that in a lot of scenarios, maybe not all, but a lot, where the home is starting to get overwhelmed and overrun by multiple assailants, one of your, and probably the best option, is to probably get out the back door, to get away and regroup, possibly with the rest of your team, the rest of your tribe, so that you can retake your home. This idea of standing your ground, it's just not a real smart one all the time. Now, I'm not saying to give in and to let them have it, but if you're dealing with multiple assailants and you're the only one that is capable of defending the home, it may not take very long for you to go down, and then when you go down, they've won. And so we have to always remember that. It's not defeat to evac out the back door, and to have a solid plan for that so that you can get your family out of the line of fire and potentially regroup yourself so that you can come up with a plan to retake the home. Now, some of you may be at this point sitting here saying, I thought this was a homesteading channel. Where's all the videos about chickens and gardening and stuff? Well, it is, and we do talk about those things from time to time. But the way the world is going and the stuff that we have been talking about that you've seen on this channel and many others, I would hope that most of you understand of the possibility of the danger of things like this happening. This is home invasions, and home invasions of multiple assailants, multiple people doing bad things at the same time, doing bad things in randomness just to whomever that they come across. All of these types of scenarios and many others are on the rise. And we can no longer live in this kind of naive 1950s that just because it's America that most people are good and things are going to be okay. We have to understand the reality that you may come to a point, and you may have a time in your life that you actually have to use lethal force to protect you and your home. And as things spiral out of control, well, it's just only going to get worse. So back to the couples training. First of all, if you don't know how to do it and you're unfamiliar with training as a team, meaning that it's not just that you're becoming proficient in your sidearm or your rifle or whatever weapon that you choose, but you know how to move in the different types of tactics that you would use in a live fire defensive situation. If you're unfamiliar with that because maybe you haven't served in the military and you don't have law enforcement training, I would certainly advise you to seek out professional training. If you can't find it, there are certainly videos and tutorials online that they may not necessarily be as good as the real thing in person, but if there's nothing else, they'll certainly work. Working as a team is very important, but even if you take team type training and understand that concept, it actually is going to be a little bit different for you as a husband and wife duo, especially if you have children, because unlike a scenario where you have two soldiers or two officers that are working together in tandem to protect each other and to take out the assailant, in this scenario you've also got innocent children, your children, that your main goal is to protect. And so this training is different, and I'm not going to get into the specifics of that today. That may end up being another video, but the main point is that it is a different scenario. There are different tactics that you would use in working together with your spouse to defend the home, to take out the bad guys, and to protect most of all the children that are behind you somewhere. There are different things that you can do, and I've mentioned this several times in the past. Number one, you should have a certain type of code word in your home that your children know what it is and they know what it means. It should be something that is easy for them to remember, and I'm not saying you have to do this, but one way of creating these types of code words would be to use a child's, like a cartoon character or something that a child would be more familiar with. And let's just make one up real quick. Let's say Cinderella. Most children understand and know what Cinderella is and the story of Cinderella. So maybe that would be a word. It's easy for them to remember. And then of course you have to train with them and give them directions of what you want them to do when this word is used. Usually, and the best idea is to have a specific place in the home that the children can go to, that when they hear this word, it means that something bad is about to happen or very well could happen, and that the children need to go into safety, into cover. And try to find a place in your property or on your home, and then outside in case they're outside, that they can go to and be hopefully protected from bullets flying at them. So you're not just looking for concealment, but cover. It's even possible for you to make some type of safe room in your home. You could take a small room like a laundry room or a pantry, and you could do things to it to improve the bullet resistance ability of that room. So that's the number one thing. You want to get the innocents to the safest place in the home. And you should train with them. If you're fortunate enough to have an older child in the home that is mature enough and capable enough to kind of lead the way and to get them to safety, that's a good thing. Also, if the older child is old enough that they can also know how to use a firearm, depending on the maturity level of the child, it may be a good thing to have something for them so that they can take with them. And again, the oldest child is the last ditch effort and the last line of defense. then as a husband and wife duo, you want to be working and training. The best scenario that I could think of is that the wife probably is going to stay inside or very, very near the home. Now, if you're out about on your property, that's going to be different. You may have to work on drills where you're moving and shooting together so that you can get to a safe place, so that you can get to the children. And then that's, of course, a very different scenario. But if let's say someone's coming down your driveway and you're at home, whether or not you as the husband, as the man, chooses to exit the home and engage, which is what a lot of people's training would be and what they would do. And the purpose of that is if I am defending the home from the front door or from the front window, and my children are somewhere in that house, the bad guys are shooting at me, and they may miss me and they may hit my children. So I want to draw that fire away from my home. So I may have a certain position on the property off to the left or to the right flank so that I can move very quickly to that place, find a position of cover and concealment, and draw their fire away from my home so that it gives my family a chance to either get into a safe place or to evac out the back door. This is something to not to get too much into the masculinity kind of thing that the whole world seems to hate right now, but this is just kind of the job of the man. And in a scenario like this, you just have to understand that you may go down, you may take a round, and that's just our job. But you want to try to draw their fire away from you. And depending on the scenario, it's hard to talk about it in general terms on here because there's so many different variances and possibilities. But the wife may be assisting you. If she's close enough, she may be bringing ammunition to you. She may be offering cover fire for you to move. There's all kinds of scenarios that could go on. The point is, going back to the original purpose of this video, is that husbands and wives need to train together. I find a lot of times, and we have done training within our group with women, and I have done training in the past with women, and they're usually, they're a little overwhelmed, okay? Maybe they've done a little hunting as a young person with their grandfather or their father, but actually doing a type of tactical combat scenario is very new to them, and it's not typically something that most women play through their minds. Men, they do that. They play their G.I. Joes when they're kids, and so throughout their whole lives, pretty much, they're playing out this scenario of what's going to happen when I have to be Rambo and defend my family. And so there's already a level of preparedness that a man has mentally just because of that. Most women typically don't do that, and they're very overwhelmed at times when you put a rifle in their hands and you start talking to them. My wife grew up in Texas. She knows how to shoot a gun. She's hunted and things like that. Typical Texas girl that knows how to handle a weapon, but she's never been taught and used a weapon in more of a combat role. And so a lot of the things that she was taught in how to hunt or how to target shoot do not apply in a combat training scenario. And so she's having to relearn things, but she's very much she very much wants it. And so I find that also that a lot of women, they desire to learn these things, they desire to do them, and to know how to handle a weapon in that way and to be proficient with it, but they're intimidated by it. They're intimidated. They don't want to look stupid in front of their husband. They don't want to look stupid in front of the other guys or something that's maybe within the group or something. Do not let that be something that slows you down. For instance, and I'm trying not to give away too much operational security, but in our group, we have, amongst the men, we have a mixture of some men that have either served in a military combat role or have served in a law enforcement role, and some have done both. And then we have men that have never done any kind of military or law enforcement. So we're all training together, trying to get everyone up to speed. And then the women want to train. Sometimes they do it willingly, sometimes it's reluctantly. But I believe the intimidation factor is probably the biggest thing. And one of the things that I see from my perspective within our own community is that the men, they're not certainly looking down on any of the ladies because they don't know how to handle a weapon. They're not looking down on them because they don't even know how to put a magazine inside of a mag well, or the proper way to load a shotgun, or the proper way to handle a weapon. They're not looking down on them. They see that their wives are have many other expertise levels of things that the guys don't have, and they're willing to help them. So this message right here is for you ladies that are wanting to get out and learn and to train. Don't be intimidated by it. Don't feel that you're going to look silly because you don't know what you're doing, because it's not something, it's not a thing that you've ever envisioned, right? Don't allow that to be something that holds you back. Get out there and train, and then train with the guys, and train with your husbands, because in the end, the bee just won't leave me alone. In the end, your last line of defense for your family is going to be the mom and the dad, the husband and the wife. There could be others, there may be others part of your tribe that live nearby or on your property. You may have older children, teenagers, older, that are capable of training at an adult level, and that's all true. But in the end, the husband and the wife are the last line of defense for the home. And you need to be training that way. And it's not difficult in the skill level of it. It's difficult because we're busy. We're just busy. I mean, I have one of the least excuses. We have the property to do it. We have all the resources to go out. I've had the training and done it, all kinds of stuff myself. And yet we don't spend enough time doing that. It's something that my wife and I have been talking about, and I feel guilty. I don't spend enough time. And when the longer the time period that you go between, practicing, the more rust that builds up on your skills. It doesn't matter how good you are and what you have done. If it has been weeks, months, or even years since you've gone out and done these things, and I'm not talking about shooting at a piece of paper. I'm talking about getting out and moving around and doing some real techniques that would resemble very much a combat scenario. If you're not doing that on a regular basis, you're starting to lose your edge. And so we need to get out there, all of us, and do that. I know that this is not something that everyone would do, but I would recommend at least 1,000 rounds a month. And I know that seems like a lot. Some of you may not even own 1,000 rounds of ammunition, but 1,000 rounds of ammunition would certainly be, I think, good enough to keep your skill level up. If you can do more, do more. People ask all the time how much ammunition. Well, there's two different answers to that. There's the ammunition that you keep stockpiled for when things go bad so that you can have your own supply chain. And then there's the ammunition that you're shooting all the time right now. And those are two different numbers. And so I would recommend 1,000 rounds a month. The best case scenario for most people would be 1,000 rounds of rifle and 500 rounds of pistol every month. That may be extreme for a lot of you, but it's certainly a goal to work towards. Thing is, folks, is we have to do this because the world is becoming a crazy place, and it's becoming an unsafe place. The violence is increasing everywhere, and it's not just the big cities and the downtown areas and the hood and all that kind of stuff. It's increasing everywhere. In suburban America and the small rural communities, everywhere we are seeing an uptick in crime. And as the world falls apart, well, it's just going to continue to get worse. So right now is the time for you to get your houses in order, to prepare yourselves mentally, physically, and spiritually. Thank you for watching, and I'll catch you in the next video.